This short tutorial is an introduction to editing with Olive, a video editing program that's free and open source, available on Windows, Mac, and Linux. I recently made a preview video about it, link in the description, and although it's in alpha, still in development, it's quite promising while making a little tutorial to help you learn how to use the program. In this video, you will see how to create a short video like this one with some audio tracks, some fades. I'm mostly going to look at the basic video editing tools, how to organize your footage into bins. Without further ado, let's get started. Let us briefly look at the interface before we start the new project. So you have all your media and footage in the black box in the top left corner of the screen. There you will put your music, your pictures, your video, etc., all the raw footage. In the middle, you then have a media viewer that you can use to process the clips, set in and out points, limit the parts that you want to use in your video, and you can then click and drag from that to take a base clip that you've just prepared in your bin into your timeline where you will edit the final video. Then on the right side, you have the sequence viewer. This is a preview of your edit of your video. Most of the time, I'll be working with the effects tab on in the middle, and this lists all the properties and effects that you have assigned to the currently selected videos. At the bottom of the screen, you have your timeline, as you can see here, and in your timeline, you can edit individual timelines, individual sequences of media footage, and add some music to it, add some sound effects, so you can have both video and audio tracks and edit them using the toolbox on the left of the screen. On the right side, finally, you will find an audio preview so that you can monitor the audio levels in your video and ensure that they're not getting too high. At first, you will be presented with the same interface, just fairly empty. The first thing we want to do is save our project. You can do Ctrl-Shift-S or use the button you will find at the top left of the screen. Then save your project anywhere you'd like. I typically use my documents or video folder, Olive in this case. I'll create a new folder for each of the projects. You want to stay quite organized when you are working on videos because you'll be working with a growing number of media files. Today we are the 22nd of April and this project is going to be a demo. Should do the trick. I'll call it the same way before saving it. There you go. Next we want to import media that we will edit with. For that, you can go to File, Import, press Ctrl-I, or my preferred method to do that is to use my file manager. So I will go to the folders where I have the media I want to use. Here, some shots from Yoshino in Japan and the cherry blossoms. So I'm going to pick a few shots. If you want to create a full project and organize your footage, you'll want to drag them in the top left corner of the screen. Note that you can also drag them on the timeline, and this will allow you to directly edit them. If you're just working with a few shots for a short video, you can do that. But I'll drag them into the bin, and depending on your current settings, you might see a list view like that. You can use the three icons at the top of this area here to change the way the icons are listed. I'm going to use the icon grid and slightly expand the view by clicking and dragging on the dots in the interface. From there, anytime you can click the plus button in the top left of the area to add new folders, or you can right click, go to new and create folders or sequences. You can also right click to import, as you can see, using the contextual menu. For this video though, we're not going to bother too much. I'll just go to my music folder and import some music track from Taiwan. I have one that is really nice called Voyage that has this Asian feeling. So I'm going to drag it there. You can see the icon is a bit different to help distinguish it from the rest. The next step is to prepare the media in general in the traditional workflow with video editing. So you double click any piece of media to open it in the media viewer. You can click and drag on the timeline to move the cursor in time and check your footage. Then, when you found a good starting point for the clip, press the I key to set an end point. This will be the starting point of the clip in the timeline. Find another place where you want it to stop. I think it's interesting with the bird here before we get that shine from the sun on the trees. Do we want to keep it? No. I'm going to set an out point there and the end point a little closer to the bird coming down into the shot. I and O to set in and out points. And you can preview the time range you're going to get when you click and drag that clip onto your timeline. Now you want to do that for each and every one of the clips you want to use in the video. So I'm going to do it really quickly and be back in a second. Once your clips are ready, select them in the area in the top left of the screen, your project organization tab, and click and drag them on the timeline. Each of the clips that you import will use the in and out times that you defined in the media viewer. I'm going to open the FX panel just to drag my shortcuts preview here so you can see the keys I'll be pressing on the keyboard. We can get started editing. Firstly, with the timeline overlapped, you can press Control minus and Control plus or Control equal to change the height of the tracks that you are working with. This helps to see the image preview a little better. Then you will use minus and plus to zoom in and out in time instead of zooming in and out vertically. You have control over both of these parameters. You want to click and drag at the top of the timeline to move the time cursor. You can also navigate the clips with the arrow keys, so down to go down to the next cut in time, to go forward in time, and up to go back to the previous cut. You can then use left and right to move precisely frame by frame. You have the Control K keyboard shortcut to insert a cut at that point, although you can also use W to trim to the next cut and to ripple the edit, or Q to go to the in point or the previous cut. You can set in and out points on your timeline with the keyboard, so you move a little bit in time, and you can use the I and O key to set your in and out points. They are useful for jumping around in your timeline because you can do Shift O to go to the out point and Shift I to go to the in point. Not only that, you can also use it for editing with the Q and W keys, but also you can use Shift Space to play the clip, to play the edit from the endpoint. So Shift Space anytime to jump back to your endpoint. Finally, you can clear them with the G key. They do a little more than that, so when you want to make precise edits, I told you can use Q and W to quickly cut and trim. You can also, for example, set an out point, and you can use the semicolon and the comma keys. The semicolon to trim the entire time range to the out point, and the other one is the quote key to remove the area that you've selected in time and to ripple the edit. So you will use the single quote there. Editing with the keyboard is really efficient. That's why we're starting with these tools, but you have all the tools you need to edit with the mouse. You can find them on the left side of the screen, right there in the toolbox, although I still recommend to use the keyboard as much as possible, or the fastest shortcuts if you want. The one in the top left is the main tool, the most versatile one. You can use it to click and select given strips. You will notice one thing that might not happen by default for you. It's that my time cursor jumps to the start of the clip I'm selecting, which I use to preview what I'm doing a little bit, which clip I'm working on, and for color grading as well, which we will take a very quick look at the end of the video. To do that, you want to go to the Tools menu, Preferences, and when you open that, you have a Behavior tab that allows you to select this option, selecting also seeks. And once you have that, every time you select a clip, the time cursor will jump to its first cut, to the start of it. You can click and drag over clips to select multiple ones at the same time. And when you do that, in the FX tab at the top, you will be able to transform the values on all selected clips at once. So you can use that to add an effect for color grading, for example. When you don't have anything selected, with the Alt key down, you can select individual parts of a clip. When you click on a given video strip or media, it's going to select both the video and the audio together. So when you click and drag it to move it in time, it's going to move the both of them. Sometimes you want to edit the audio separately from the video. For that, you Alt click on one of the clips and you can then edit it separately. You will need to do that pretty often. With the main tool, the select tool, when you hover a cut, you will get that icon that shows you that you can click to trim or extend the video. Note that you cannot extend a video clip past the last frame. You have to have footage if you want to do that. Note that if you use the select tool, which is bound to the V key, by the way, it's going to leave a gap when you trim it. And at the moment, there's no way to select the gap directly. So you have to do something like place the time cursor at the end of the current strip. You can use the down key for that to jump to it. Press the W key to ripple or delete to the next endpoint, to the next cut. Another way to do that is to use the ripple tool, the third one going from the top, and the keyboard shortcut is B for this one. You can click and drag then, and it will ripple the edits that you make whenever you trim, be it the left side or the right side of a given strip. You have a few other tools that I invite you to give a try to. So one is the slightly free selection tool that you can use to select different chunks of the video. You can then press delete to delete the parts, or you can shift delete to ripple delete some edits. Not only delete some parts of the footage, but to also move all the following strips back in time. Note that at the moment it doesn't work too well with multiple selections. It works best with a single selection. Again, this is alpha software, so there are still some bugs. You will find the razor tool bound to the C key, and this one is going to insert cuts anywhere but using the mouse. I don't like it so much because you don't get to preview your footage at the moment. It will be best when you can preview the current frame on hovering. Right now, that's not the case. Let's talk quickly about the slide tool. It's bound to the U key. So you select a given clip, you press U, and you can then click and drag to slide it in between two clips, extending and shrinking them as needed. One last thing I should mention about the select tool is that when you click and move a given frame, a given strip, it's going to eat the strips that you move it over. If you move it in the middle of these three clips, for example, over there, it's going to eat the one in the middle and trim the other two. You can toggle snapping on and off with the S key. So when I move my time cursor, you can see that it snaps, it turns white when it reaches a cut. And I think it does the same with the in and out points. There you go. So it snaps to them. You can toggle that behavior on and off with the S key. The last thing we should look at is the transitions. You have a transition tool and you can use that. So you have the cross dissolve to transition visually from two strips. For that, you can select it. You can select the tool with the T key, and then it will ask you for for the kind of fade that you want. Cross dissolve for the video, the other ones are for audio. Select that, and you can then preview the fades, so you can use that to fade in, fade out, or crossfade between two strips. When you click, you can click and drag to set the duration of the fade, and you will see the duration in frames and then in seconds. Let's say you want a 12 frames fade, like that, click and release. From there, you can select the cross just like you would select any strip, and you can expand it anytime by clicking and dragging on its edges. Once you pass your cursor over it, you will see that the video slowly fades from one clip to the next. So until now, I've had us work with the raw video footage, and you can see that the preview is pretty fast. We can seek quite quickly. That is thanks to Olive using some modern technology and using all your processing power to browse through the video. You can also use something called proxies, use optimized media files that will make your video experience, your editing experience a lot better. So you'll select the clips you want to create proxies for in your project tab, right click over them and go to the proxy option, create proxy. The proxies are really media that's going to be often smaller in size than or in resolution, should I say, than your source. And then you can change the codec as well to make it a lot faster to seek, optimized for preview, and it's going to take a lot more space on your hard drive. So you use that while working on a given video project, and you will likely delete these proxies once the video is done. So you can change the dimensions. You can go to half resolution to get a big boost in your video editing speed, and you can go down to quarter. 8th resolution if you are working 4K can be quite useful. As the window is quite small, here you can go to quarter resolution, to be fair, if you're going to edit with that size. If you have a huge screen and you have a lot of space to preview the video, you can go to half resolution instead. So I'm going to go to quarter, and the format right now, you can only use the ProRes codec. That is really fast. Then you can select the location of these proxy video files, and by default you can use inside the proxy folder. Works really well. Gonna click OK. At the moment you don't really have a way to see the progress except for the notes that you get in the bar at the bottom of the screen, the info bar. So you have to do with that and wait a bit for the process to finish. Although in the meantime you can keep editing and you can just work when the proxies are done. You will see it because you will be able to really seek instantly anywhere in your edits. Now we've got the basics in place, I'm going to drag and drop some soundtracks so we can actually edit our little video. Now if you look at my clips, I don't have footage for a lot for the entire duration of the song, so I'm going to trim the track. At the moment, the best way I've found to do that, when the track is especially long, is to do Ctrl-K with the track selected to split it. It's going to split our music, so we can select the second part and press Delete to erase the strip. Then in this version of Olive, although it's being worked on, there is no way to lock a track for editing, meaning that if we are working on our song, we can't directly split and trim the upper part, the video, without trimming the music. As you can see, if I am to press W, it will both trim the video and the music along with it, even if I try to only select the video. To edit to music, right now we've got to use the mouse-based tool. We are going to work with the pointer tool, the V key, or the one assigned to the V key, and start to reorganize our clips. The first thing you want to do when you have a soundtrack like that is first you can select it and press Shift-E to toggle a track or a clip enabled. And then I'm going to scrub quickly through my video to see the different shots I have and what I want to introduce the viewer to the scene with. So I want to give a sense for the place that the viewer is going to discover here. This temple gives a sense of Japan, and the cherry blossoms, I think it could start with that clip of the tree. So nothing extraordinary. I'm going to drag it up, or we can also Control X to cut the clip, select the clip to its left by clicking and dragging, and click and drag to move them, and they will snap automatically on the right edge to the next clip. Then we can press Shift I to jump to the end point. There is none, so it will be the start of the edit right now, and Control V to paste the clip. That's how you can quickly invert the position of clips or substitute them. So we're going to start with that. And I'm going to press the B key to get the ripple tool, which allows me to not only trim a clip, but to ripple the edit to the next ones in my track. I'm also going to unhide the soundtrack with Shift E to be able to hear it and to find the beats in the song. So let me listen to it. One thing you can do is select a given clip and then play back the video and press Ctrl K to split it in different areas, like I'm doing right here. Now this is interesting because every split is going to serve as a snapping point, which means that you can play back the soundtrack, Ctrl K multiple times to insert cuts and snap to these cuts. This is an easy way to find the beats of a music. So I'm going to play and do that. Okay, so these are the beats I want to animate to. They're not absolutely perfect, but I'm going to use these as guidelines for snapping. So from there, I can start moving my clips and finding the order that would best suit the story here, always using the music as a guideline for where we change clips. I first want to use this before using the large view of Mount Yoshino, the open view of the landscape. I first want to introduce the cherry trees, and I think this is the best clip to do that. So I'm going to press Ctrl X, select the clips that were before it, move them to the right, and paste this one. Okay, then I want to move the following clip with the cherry trees being a bit more visible, closer to it. And following that, the temple, so that we understand that the world is set in Japan. And I'm going to expand the previous clip by clicking and dragging on its right edge to the start of the temple one. So you don't have to change the clip on every beat. You can use 2 or 3 of your beats if the clip makes sense. You just want to follow the rhythm of the song when you edit. And it's quite important to have the song here from the start. And I'm going to add back. First, I want to have that clip where I'm coming out of the tree to give an overview of the scene. Expand the song a little bit, so I think we can use a little more of that. And there we can get the view of Mount Yoshino. Let's see what it gives us. You always want to play back the video. You can use the JKL keys to do that. So L to play, and every time you're going to press L, it's going to increase the playback speed. So you can play back faster than the normal playback speed. So if I press L a few times, you can see that I get to play the video faster to get a quick sense of the cuts that I have and do the rough edits. You can also do that the other way around, play backwards with J, and use the K key to pause the playback. The only thing is, at the moment, it seems to be a little bug, like the audio doesn't sync perfectly with the video, so I want to play at normal speed. Okay, I'm going to insert a cut on the music here as well. Okay, place a clip according to that cut and expand the previous one. Okay, let's try that. Let's see what our edit gives us. It's by no means going to be an exceptional video, but it's just about showing you the workflow and the process. So I will typically edit a few clips, one after the others like this, looking at each and every cut and transition along the way, and once I'm done, play back the entire thing. Yeah, and I would have more clips, more transitions after that one with the cherry tree in the middle of the shot, in the middle of the camera, right in front. And I like that floating moment with the shrine that we have here. Is it a temple? I think I'd have to check. Maybe it was a temple. And however, here, when we have the introduction, I would have maybe a cut to black, like so, to create some kind of refreshing effect, or to kind of clear the view from the viewer. Anyway, with the basic edits in place, allow me to remove the screencast keys, and we are going to look at the last part, how to grade your shots a little bit. We're going to select one of the clips, any of them, and go to the FX tab, the one that I tend to keep open at all times. There you can add effects to all selected clips. If I select all of them, let's say I want to grade them all, I can go to the button in the top left corner. To add, we're going to go to color and color correction. This is the most versatile effect at the time of recording. You can use the scroll bar on the right to go down and focus on the color correction. You will see the multiple in parentheses that indicates that if you change the settings at that point, you're going to change them on all selected clips. We don't want that. We only want them to update on the clip that we are currently hovering with the time cursor. This is one of the cases where the option to auto-select when seeking, if you go to the preferences, will help quite a bit, because you can start working more with the keyboard. So you'll jump to cut using the up and down arrows, and it will automatically select the clip that the time cursor is hovering. With that, you can easily color correct the clip that's currently showing on screen. So you'll want to start with the temperature and the tint to white balance your shot. White balance, its purpose is to make the whites in the image look white. Depending on how you shoot with the camera, that might not be the case, although most cameras try to white balance automatically. So you white balance your different shots so that they look more or less consistent, even if you shot with different lighting conditions. From there, you can play a bit with the exposure, and sorry in advance because I'm using a pen tablet and the support is not outstanding right now. Next, you can use the exposure to globally tweak the lightness of your scene if you want, and the contrast to increase the contrast between the light and the dark areas. So I'm going to increase this one a little bit and maybe increase the exposure as well. Highlights and shadows respectively controls the very bright areas, so you can tone them down, or there again increase the contrast, blow up the image. I'm going to lower the highlights a little bit, and the shadows I'm going to lower them as well. This gives you a little more control compared to using the exposure instead, and I'll increase the saturation globally on my picture a little bit. You can also control the whites and the blacks separately from the shadows and highlights, which are really targeting the extremes in your value range, while highlights and shadows are a little more shallow. Note that we can add a different effect to work on the colors. You'll go to color and color correction to focus on that. As far as I know, right now we don't have an interface with the 3 color wheels that you might be used to in other video editing programs that allow you to use lift, gamma, and gain to control the image's look. But in the meantime, color correction does the job, and I'm pretty sure that it would come in a future version with the node-based grading system that's in development. Anytime you can click on the checkbox to toggle the effect on and off. So you can see how my color correction here makes the image a lot more vivid. And you'll want to do that individually for each of the shots to make your video look as good as possible. That's a topic for a different video though, digging a bit more the color correction aspect of the program, and I'd rather wait for the node-based system to be available. To wrap things up, let's talk about exporting your video. For that, you'll go to the File menu, Export, and then you'll get a few parameters that might be a bit daunting at first, but fear not, it's fairly simple. MPEG-4 video, the video format is MP4, the one you'll use on the web, on YouTube, Twitter, etc. It's the most common format. Then you can choose the range if you want to use the entire sequence, so from start to the end of your sequence here, or if you want to use your in and out point, the blue range on the timeline. So you can do that. I'm going to press Ctrl M to toggle the export again. So if you have in and out points, it will automatically select in to out. Then you can select the codec that you are going to use. H.264 and libx264 is the open source codec that you'll use to export the typical MPEG-4 video for YouTube, Twitter, etc. Once again, you have 265 HEVC. If you are working with 4K video or 8K even, you might want to use HEVC, which is more efficient for that, but a little slower to process, to compress. Then you have the width and height of your exported video if you want to export at a lower resolution, the frame rate that you want to use, and then the compression type is going to be your most important parameter. You'll want to use constant rate factor most of the time. This option gives more control to the encoder, which will use algorithms to compress the video as much as possible while retaining a constant visual quality. It's the most convenient option to use. It produces the best files most of the time. If you don't know what you are doing, you'll want to stick to that. And you control it using a CRF value. It's constant rate factor. So this is the target quality that the encoder should aim for. The lower the value, the higher the quality and the bigger the video. When you are exporting for YouTube, a CRF of 20 should do the trick. It should give you a really high quality and a good file size at the same time. If you want a lossless video, you'll want to go for 0. Otherwise, the default value of 36 seems a little high to me. It might create a video that has some very slight visual artifacts, but that should work well, for example, for Twitter or Facebook. I tend to go to values around 20 to 25, for example, for YouTube, for the internet. For the audio, ASC is the recommended codec for YouTube there again, and the recommended bitrate, if I remember correctly, is 192, although the default of 256 will work well there again. Then want to click Export, choose a location to export the video and give it a name. Press Enter and let the program do its job. It should be pretty fast as it uses all your CPU power, but with that, you're done. You know how to get started to edit a simple video with the Olive Editor Alpha. Until we make more tutorials, I want to thank you kindly for watching. For now, be creative, have fun. See you in the next one. Bye-bye.